You don't have to be a complete hippie or wear tie-dye or live in a teepee to be sustainable.
Welcome to the Greener Grass podcast from BlueBird Botanicals. I'm your host, Lex Pelger. Today we talk with Tony Budden, the friendly force of nature behind the Hemporium of Cape Town, South Africa. We'll hear Tony's story about why he founded the Hemporium and how it led him to build the first hempcrete house on the continent. We'll include a link with photos of that in the episode notes. Tony lives a life surrounded by hemp, and it was a pleasure to sit down with him to learn more about this beautiful old devil's weed. This show is brought to you by BlueBird Botanicals, to spread education about cannabis and other things on the greener side of life. BlueBird CBD oil comes from farms in southern Colorado and is grown using only water, soil, and sunlight. Go to bluebirdbotanicals.com for more info. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here with Tony Budden of South Africa and the Hemporium.
Lex, great to be here. Thank you.
Great. So you came up here for Inoko, the big expo?
Yes, they invited me to come up and tell a little bit of the progress that we're seeing in Africa, and also to remind people of the bigger reasons of why we're all in this industry, what the potential for change on environmental issues, and using products that biodegrade and digest within our bodies and by our planet as well. And yeah, it was a really amazing experience to see how far the industry has come in the last few years in the States.
What about cannabis was it that first drew you to it?
The hemp story started when we were given a piece of hemp canvas by a friend of ours' father who was importing fabrics at the time, and he came back from China one time and he said, "You've got to see this. This is made out of cannabis." And obviously, the word canvas comes from the word cannabis. So all canvas used to be made out of hemp, and we felt this fabric, and it instantly, there was something about that moment of holding something that wasn't smoke, that had a whole tangible experience that went, wow, this plant is way more than we had ever imagined. And I mean, we had imagined that it was a whole lot before that, but this was now something that was so tangible, was so, you could feel it was strong, it had all these other properties. And we started making bags out of it for other students, and kind of back then, 1996, that's when we started. It was the wear what you smoke market that had a positive viewpoint towards the plant. There was no natural and organic industry. No one was even aware of scarce resources. But as we learned about it, we learned about the other uses as well. And we made it our mission to showcase everything that the plant can offer, which is not something I recommend to people who want to get into the industry now, because you're working with such an amazing, versatile resource. But we developed in those first 10 years about 2,000 individual products, from clothing to body care products to food ranges and paper products and construction side. And then eventually we've got into the CBD side as well. So it's just a very complex business model for a small team, and still at that stage, and still now actually built on imports. So we get fabrics from China, food from Germany or Canada, building materials from UK or France, and paper from Germany, twines and ropes from Hungary. So it's really a massive value chain to get our products into South Africa. We bring in the raw products and we make everything locally, which is a whole another angle. Instead of just importing something and selling it, we import something, and now we've got a production line in South Africa to convert it. But our aim at that stage wasn't to be the biggest hemp clothing company or the biggest hemp fabric company. It was to use all of these products to educate people. You create a sustainable business, of course. We're preaching sustainability. You have to be sustainable, but was also to educate people on what this plant can offer and look behind what I call the smoke screen, the rest of what this plant can do.
And so all of this started right as apartheid was ending then?
Well, that was exactly it. South Africa, in 1994, the government changed. Everything just opened up. There was all these new influences. We would never, during apartheid, there was a very strict laws against what's called dacha in South Africa, and they still are the same laws, but the enforcement wasn't as bad as with the apartheid government. They really clamped down on anything to do with cannabis. So there were very few people who were prepared to touch it or work with it. But as we started educating people at that same time with the fresh energy in the country, it was called the Rainbow Nation. We were all moving forward, looking forward at creating something really special in South Africa. So we fitted right into a very exciting kind of maverick counterculture sphere at that stage. But then when we took a break from it from about 2000 to 2003, well, after finishing studying, the three partners all went on a different journey. We all traveled a little bit internationally, went to do some time overseas, and basically came back in 2003 more empowered or motivated to really push hemp in South Africa, because we realized it was starting to grow elsewhere in the world, and we'd been to Japan and to UK and seeing what's happening. And we relaunched, but this time very much in the natural and organic sector. So we cut out anything, no rolling papers, no pipes or bongs in the shops that we sold, no big leaves on our shirts, no reggae colors, just saying, right, this is about sustainability and about a product that if we carried on marketing it through that side, through the counterculture side, we'd be preaching to the converted. And we had to convince the people who weren't into the plant already. And how we did that was by designing products that are normal, like regular, I'm wearing a golf shirt now. We make collared shirts, we make jeans, we make hoodies, we make, like things that everyone's got in their cupboard, but just doing the education of you don't have to be a complete hippie or wear tie-dye or live in a teepee to be sustainable. You can just change the resource that you use to make your products and it will decrease your footprint. So that was a market that was starting in around 2003, 2004, and we slotted into that and then got more into kind of the raw food markets, the eco side, where people are starting to understand what organic was, why we need to change. And we've been in that sector since then. I myself have been extracting myself a little bit so I can speak more broadly also on the harms of prohibition and the benefits of medical and all of that. So because for when you've been with a company for pretty much 22 years, people associate that company with you and you with that company. But I know that there are bigger issues as well that I'm personally looking at and learning about and want to educate on as well, that aren't necessarily only around industrial.
Which directions would you like to be moving if you had more free time?
So at the moment, what's happened, we've got Hemporium up to a really nice team. I can completely trust them to run the business without me being there day to day. So I'm focusing more on the surrounding countries that are starting to change the law around cannabis. So working with a project in Malawi, which is the poorest country in the world. It's in the center of Africa pretty much. They call it the warm heart of Africa, but very, very base. And we know we can have a huge impact with the hemp industry there. Also working with a project in Lesotho, which is another small country that's given out 7 medical licenses, and then looking at various other projects in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and also keeping lobbying in South Africa. To change the law in South Africa so that we can take advantage of it, because unfortunately we've been in hemp research in South Africa from the government funded hemp research since 1996. So we've stagnated in research. We could have been a world leader. We started pretty much at the same time as Canada, but we stayed in research where they moved to participatory research, where the farmers carried on doing research. Part of your license is you've got to give you information back. What varieties you planted, when you planted, what yields you got, what pests you saw. Where South Africa just stayed in the researchers asking for more budget every year to do more small plots and trying to find something that the perfect crop for Africa, instead of saying, right, let the farmers do that. The farmers will get it right within a few years because their farm is on the line. Researchers will tell you they'll carry on going in research for as long as possible just to keep getting more budget. So we've lost out a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, we can also learn from others' mistakes. We can learn from some of the concessions. Like if we look at what the Canadian farmers did in order to get their licenses that early, is they promised not to touch the flowers. that they wouldn't be working with any of the cannabinoids. So all of those 50,000 hectares that the Canadian farmers grow currently, the CBD goes out the combine harvester back into the ground. And they're not only now trying to get permission to be able to extract that, well, they're obviously realizing that it's a crucial part of the industry now. So we wouldn't want to obviously do that. We see CBD as a crucial part to not only financially make it viable on the short term, because the industrial, like the fiber side and the food side, has a much longer value chain that needs to be, we need decortication facilities, we need fiber processing facilities, or food processing facilities where the CBD, you can get your returns quite quickly. It's not if you have access to a lab, obviously, to do your extractions, but it also, if you're managing to get some of your quick money with that, it drops what you need to sell your fiber for. So your fiber and your biomass and everything becomes really a byproduct. And for the long term, for Africa to have those materials really cheap, your fiber and building materials and even the food side, if the farmers and the primary processors have made their money off the CBD and the cannabinoids, and we can get the rest for Africa at a really good price, then we're winning. Then we're moving into a staple where hemp will be seen as a staple food and a staple building material, not a niche sitting in eco, like a raw foodie kind of everyone who's already eating so well and building eco houses for people with a lot of money, but really building houses for people who don't currently have a house or are eating such a terrible diet, that we can really make hemp food available at a price that the average African can afford, and they're living on, some of them, $2, $3 a day. They're definitely not going to buy hemp seeds imported from Canada. So, yeah.
Because you're even doing food distribution in Kailicha and some of the townships, correct?
So that's one of the most exciting and rewarding projects that I've been involved in, or Hemporium's been involved in, is that we basically were approached to help fundraise for a hemp soup kitchen. So a lady was already making soup for ill people and HIV orphans and people with tuberculosis and everything in the townships. So the townships in around every South African city are shanty towns, much like you would see in the favelas in Brazil and that kind of thing. Very, very poor diets, no services going in there at all, very few clinics. And this lady, amazing lady, Mama Mickey, we can put a link later to her page on Facebook, Yize Ekaya. She feeds about 250 people a day off her government pension and donations. So she was doing it in a really terrible environment, like in her little concrete hut, and someone raised funding, or we were part of a crowdfunding thing to raise money to build her soup kitchen out of hempcrete. And we did that, and it was such a nice space that they're not using it as a kitchen at the moment. They're using it as a workshop space. So the adults who have to come and get workshops on permaculture, nutrition, AIDS awareness, basic economics, that kind of thing, before they get their soup. And also the local clinic sends nurses and that to the hemp house now to do their evaluations and that, because it's such a comfortable space. It's warm in the winter and it's cool in the summer. So yeah, that's I think what inspires me to keep going in a very challenging environment. I mean, anyone who's ever been to Africa or understands the complexities of our cultures and our political system and the slow rate of change will understand we operate in a very challenging environment. It's not like the States where you're setting up a business, you can turn it around in about 2 or 3 years and be profitable. Anything in Africa takes a long time. And to change perceptions in a fairly conservative culture and a fairly suspicious culture, there's still a lot of superstition, a lot of misunderstanding between the different cultures, between black and white and brown, and between different political parties and different languages and everything. To overcome that and be able to offer a universal solution and saying, look, this isn't an African plant, this isn't an American plant, this is a earth plant, this belongs to all of us. And that is our big push, is to say, right, all of us have these endocannabinoid systems, no matter what color you are, no matter what race, what language you speak. So it belongs to all of us, and all of us can benefit from it. And in that way, it's quite a Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons it was banned. If you go look in the States with the whole marijuana Mexican thing, and in the South Africa who banned it before America, at both of them you'll find quotes that were around, we don't want cannabis because it makes black people and white people fraternize. Or it makes white women see a black man as attractive. Or I think there was a quote in the States of it makes a black man step on a white man's shadow kind of thing, like that kind of thing. That this plant has the ability to break down barriers on so many levels, on racial levels, on culture levels. If you travel anywhere and you're a plant person, and all you need to do is find someone else who's been influenced by this plant, and you'll find a kindred spirit and someone that at least you have something deeply in common with. So, yeah.
And so, as you do this work in other nations of Southern Africa, what are some of the most convincing pieces of the puzzle to these different communities? As you do education, what really appeals to people?
The building side, definitely, because Africa has such a massive issue with building and energy. We have for instance, Malawi the whole country has 342 megawatts of power to run a whole country. And it's not a massive country, but that's not enough to do any kind of industry. So currently the way they build is using clay bricks that they fire in kilns. But they're not firing it with electricity, they're firing it with charcoal that's made from trees. So these are old growth trees or like hardwood trees that they're cutting down on a massive rate to make bricks. And because of that, the deforestation is causing erosion. So you're having all of this mud run off now into the rivers. Malawi, if you look at it on a map, half the country is a massive lake, and it's it's got the most freshwater fish species in the world. Like, I think there's more in that one lake than the whole of Europe, more species. But at the moment, the fisheries are collapsing, and they think it's from overfishing, which is obviously a problem. But the other side is that this erosion is causing the estuaries to silt up. So the fish usually breed in the estuaries. Now they can't because it's full of mud from the erosion, and the fisheries are dying. So the fishermen are not making the connection that it's their brothers up the road who are cutting down the trees that are leading to the fish stocks collapsing. So we can really push the building side and say, right, rather use air-dried hempcrete than fired clay bricks. You're going to have a more comfortable environment. It's going to be sustainable. You're going to have a whole industry set up to grow enough hemp to supply all of these bricks. At the same time as you're growing for bricks, you're going to be growing for fiber. You've now got an eco-textile industry set up that you've got a whole lot of fiber around, and you can get your seeds that you're going to have nutrition for people who are malnourished. So it's just like a win-win-win all round. But the biggest challenge that we have to overcome is that most of Africa, all the governments still have to really listen to the international treaties, the United Nations Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs, that says cannabis is a drug. That's the whole plant, any product thereof is undesirable dependence-producing substance, and the federal government of the states. So a lot of the funding that comes into Africa funnels through the states, whether it's World Bank, IMF, USAID. All of this comes through the states, and if the federal government tells the African governments that you are not allowed to use cannabis because all cannabis is a drug. So the feds, the story, they don't see any legitimate use, or they pretend they don't see any legitimate uses. So they will tell African countries that they're not allowed to change their laws. Or if African countries try and change the laws, they'll be, we're not going to give you your preferential interest rates. We're not going to give you your grant funding because you're supporting a drug industry, even if they're doing hemp. So my push a lot of the time, and maybe I'm just not trusted enough as an umlungu, which is as a white person, I run into that battle quite a lot of the time, was like, I'm coming here with a gift to you guys. And they go, well, your grandfather said the same thing, and it didn't work out so well for us. So some of the time, I've really got to do education on the ground and get local partners and that. But, this idea that change your law, and maybe you won't be so reliant on all this grant funding and all of the stuff that you need to get from these other countries, because it's always tied in with debt. There's always going to be conditions, and maybe look at this as a way of generating enough income for your country and enough taxes and enough growth and jobs that you'll be self-sufficient. You look at what's happened in Colorado, a state of 4 million people. just how much money has been generated and taxes and everything. It's pretty much, I would say, the state's economy is bigger than a lot of these countries that we're talking about. So having cannabis there, setting up cannabis tourism, doing the hemp side, there's no end for how Africa can really benefit from this plant. And it's the next generation that everyone knows of low cost cultivation. We have in Malawi, we have an option of doing permanent growth, like it's 12-12 all year round. So if you find a plant that grows and still gets to a decent height before flowering at 12-12, there's plenty of sunshine, there's good water in the rainy season, and there's a big lake to irrigate from in the dry season, you can do perpetual harvest. It's not one season or two season or having to put up lights or having all of that. You would be able to literally, there's two sides, replant, grow and harvest in 3 months and get 4 harvests a year. Or we've seen some of the trees, especially the Chinese varieties, they get up to 4 meters, which is, 12 foot and above. And you can harvest perpetually. Once it starts budding, you can take buds off, but it keeps growing more buds. So it might be, we're still doing that experiment, but to see whether instead of this idea of killing the plant, harvest, let it go into veg and harvest again. Or you've got this massive root system that's just going to keep sustaining these plants. So there's all these different experiments that Africa will take care of and benefit from. And also, our labor costs are much lower. We have the sun that will cut down a lot of costs. And obviously, there's just the space. There's so much that we will be able to offer on the world stage with as far as trying to get down the price. Like if you look at the price of the local bushweed, kind of that the guys grow, you can still get it's seeded kind of bushweed, but you can still get it for under 10 US cents a gram. No problem, easy. And that's in the cities. That's 100 Rand for 100 grams, which they sell it in like a parcel of newspaper. But it's crazy. Then next to it can be a 1 gram indoor, Northern Lights or whatever, that costs the same as 100 grams of the bushweed. The differential is absolutely crazy. But you got the Canadians trying to get down to less than $1 a gram production. You'll get that in Africa very, very quickly. Obviously not if you're going for full medical and you've got to spend your $20 million on this massive facility that's got all the biocontrols and all of that. But for your average, being able to grow for the supplementary market or definitely for hemp, our costs of production are going to be way lower than anywhere in North America.
And so before I let you go off to the airport and head home, because for hempcrete, your home is actually one of the great symbols of what this game. You really put your money where your mouth is. Can you tell us a little bit about your hempcrete home?
So basically going into these meetings with government all the time saying, come on guys, look at this. This is a huge opportunity for South Africa. This is eco investment. It's houses, it's food, all of that. I'd pull out the hemp fabric and they'd go, okay, that looks quite nice, but we've got cotton and got other fibers. And then I pull out the food and we've got other protein, we've got other oils. Then I pull out the hemp brick or the hemp chipboard or something and they go like, wow, you can build houses from this plant. And then they'd want to know where the houses were and I'd tell them they were in Europe or overseas, and they would go, okay, we would really like to see this. And I said, well, let me grow it. And they wouldn't let me grow it. So I said, okay, well, we're not going to get someone else to do the first one. And we had to do it in a way that creates aspiration, that people want to live in it. So not go straight for the low-cost market and build something that's very basic and people go, well, why is it better than brick and cement, or is it better than other building materials? So we took the knock and made my house. I took the risk of doing the prototype, but we pushed it right out. Like we did it as much as we can. So just to give you the story, is generally I wake up under hemp bed linen and on hemp sheets, and I step onto hemp carpets and I open hemp curtains and I'll go and shower with hemp soap and shampoo and use hemp moisturizer, and then open my hemp cupboards that are made with hemp chipboard, put on my hemp clothing in a house that's made with hempcrete and hemp insulation in the roof and the floor, go downstairs, make my smoothie with hemp seed oil and hemp protein powder, and then put some shelled hemp seed on my salad for lunch. Like go out. Yes, my car's not hemp yet, but it could very well be one of these days. And I go to work at our business, which is providing these products for other people and supporting farmers who grow these products originally to grow something that is less impactful on the planet than other products. And hopefully be motivating people to change. And that is my dream, that right now I'm still seen as alternative. And one of the little great anecdotes that I often speak about is like this word alternative. If we look at what's happened to it, is if you think about alternative energy, alternative medicine, alternative clothing, alternative music even, alternative building materials, it's all natural. It's all the natural medicine, the natural building materials, the natural energy, even natural music. You're using analog music, not digital. And that's the thing, is when did nature go to be the alternative? What happened? When did that happen? That the things from nature are alternative, and the mainstream is the synthetic, the petrochemical, the stuff that's man-made, that's plastic that doesn't digest in earth or in our bodies. That's mainstream, and everyone accepts, this is the way we live now, better life through chemicals. And anyone who works with nature or wears nature or builds with nature is alternative. So we need to reclaim that word and be proudly alternative. And say, I'm so happy to be alternative because I am the alternative to that. And if we go on that path, we know it's a path to destruction. We know it's a path to pollution of everything that we stand for and of our own bodies. And the other thing I spoke in my talk at NOCO is very much we have to understand that what we do without, we do within. So what we can see happening in the rivers and the oceans out there in our landfills and everything is happening in our own bodies, because we too are putting things that our bodies don't know how to digest. Much like the earth doesn't know how to digest synthetics and plastics, our body doesn't know how to digest synthetics and plastics. So we have our own rivers, our veins, our lymph fluid, our kidneys, that are the estuaries, the filters of our system, clogging up with synthetic molecules that we don't know how to digest. And that's leading to all sorts of health issues. So we have to really take responsibility for that. And that's a very important thing to realize. Forget that we're doing this for our grandchildren or our children or someone in another country. This is affecting each one of us. Our reliance on synthetic single molecule medicines, that our body might do a job, much like a plastic bag does a job for 15 minutes between the shop and home, but then it hangs around for another 1,500 years or something ridiculous. In our bodies, we're taking these synthetics and putting them in. They might do a job, but they hang around in our bodies because our body doesn't automatically eliminate them because it doesn't recognize it, it doesn't know if it's something that needs to go out, if it's food or whatever. So plant-based medicine, plant-based clothing, plant-based building materials, all of that will be digestible. The earth knows what to do with it. Our bodies know what to do with it. So a lot of this push is, again, going back to nature. Proudly alternative. Make the alternative the mainstream again. Forget about what they told us, a better life through chemicals. We've seen very, very quickly that was a lie, and it always will be a lie. And yes, there have been massive progress in modern medicine, there's no doubt about it, but there are ways of us working with food-based medicine or medicine that comes in as the shape of food that our body knows how to digest. Yes, we understand isolates are really nice because it's easy to dose and easy to get exact in your product, but it's the dose curve is a lot steeper. You have to have the dose just right. Too little, it doesn't work. Too much, it doesn't work. Where plant-based, when your body then sees it as food and moves it around the body and it will do its job, but then also gets eliminated or excreted, is a much better way for us to ingest our medicine. And just to really, really take control of using things that are digestible and biodegradable. It must break down. Otherwise, we just gain to pollute ourselves out of this planet, and no one wants to live surrounded by plastic, wearing plastic, eating plastic. It's just, I hope none of you want to live like that.
Yeah. So we'll put a link to pictures of this house because it is a wonderful piece of work, and it's a beautiful story about all the hemp that starts your day.
Yes, I mean that's my hope again, that I'm not the alternative. That life is available to so many people. All of those products should be available. It shouldn't be that we are sitting on the edge of society. We should be the mainstream, and that's the beauty about this plant. It helps people decrease their footprint very easily. It still feels good to wear hemp. It feels better to me to wear hemp than other products. Still is this is a thing. If we start making it easy for people to change, not sacrifice. It's not something that we have to give up certain things. We can make beautiful cars out of hemp plastic that's maybe powered by sustainable energy or by ethanol, that you can still go super fast and have your good feeling of, if you want to be like that. If you want to travel, we have alternatives these days. Well, alternatives again here, that they're products that are as beautiful as anything that's made from synthetics these days, as energizing. Well, they're more energizing. They working again with nature. So this is the thing, is as the industry, our job is to create beautiful products that make people feel good and empowered, and that they're making a real contribution while not making a sacrifice. Don't ask anyone to give up their stuff. Just say, change what your stuff is made out of. Just change that and support the companies that are doing things right. That is your biggest power. The currency, the current that you have is in your wallet. And if you don't like the practices that someone's following in their business, don't support them. There's a great analogy I use, but not a lot of people like it. But Big Macs, going to get a Big Mac, and you drive in there and you give your dollars over and you get your burger and you drive away, and you think that's the exchange. But if you look at McDonald's and a lot of the other meat companies are the cause of the biggest amount of deforestation in the Amazon, as they're cutting down trees to make more pasture land, to grow more soy also, to feed cattle. Now, if you don't agree with deforestation, why are you supporting companies that have that as a practice? You basically paying them to go pay another Amazonian farmer to cut down some more forest because they want to make more burgers for you the next time you come. So we really have to start looking at the impact of our currency, of our money, where we spend it, who we spend it with. And the more we as industry, of natural industry, and the companies that are trying to do it right and be conscious capitalists, doing business for good, the more support we get, the cheaper we can make our products, the more available we'll make it for you, and the better economies of scale we can get, and we will no longer be seen as this niche. Then that's the future. That you can't use eco, organic, or natural as a marketing term anymore, because that's just standard. That's the way it should be. We shouldn't be able to use that as a marketing term, because everyone should have that as a practice. Hopefully we'll get there one day, and those who are not doing it are the ones that are pointed out. Not that everyone's normal and we trying to do something good. And then one more thing is just to change the way we celebrate our heroes, and this idea that to do good you can't do well. That it's okay to make money and to be profitable while doing good, because we have this kind of martyrdom that everyone thinks that if you're making good money while saying you're doing good, you must be a fraud. It's some weird psychology that the people to celebrate who are making money are those who are involved in extraction and oil industry and whatever. Those are the guys on the front page of The Economist. But we really need to start celebrating those that are doing good and making money. You look at Patagonia, one of my favorite brands. They read Let My People Go Surfing, and The Responsible Company, written by Yvon Chouinard, the head of Patagonia, to see that you can really put amazing parts of your business model in that consider your environment and the people around your business at the same time as being very profitable, and that's okay. So just the more you support us, the more we can spread these messages, the more we can reach economies of scale and keep telling these stories, because it's quite a challenge being in a business where telling a story is a big part of selling your product. To actually have this, we're not just selling another T-shirt made in Bangladesh or China or whatever. There's a story behind it, and that story takes energy to tell. And so definitely my advice to anyone who wants to get in the industry now, first of all, don't fall in the hemp trap or trying to do it all. Choose something you can do better than everyone else and do that. And second of all, just be prepared to have that energy to be able to tell the story at the same time, and be excited to tell the story because it's a great story.
It is a challenge and an inspiration.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks so much, Tony, for coming and sharing today.
It is my pleasure, and thank you very much to everyone that I've met here in the States this time. The hospitality of this country is amazing. Maybe specifically this industry, it's amazing to be in amongst so many people who are doing something for good. Yes, it's an industry and we need to make money and we need to be sustainable as businesses, but the motivation to get into the hemp industry generally comes from a motivation to be involved in something positive, and it's quite unique in business, that people are doing it for more than just a paycheck. They're doing it because they want to feel part of doing good and helping people. And that's always inspiring to be around. And I'm going home more inspired than ever, and it's needed because it's hard being a pioneer. But these days, it's never been easier than to find tribe. We can find tribe. People know me through social media and through the videos we put out and all of that. I come here and I'm almost more recognized than I am at home, and that's amazing. That to find people that you can connect with. You can just imagine a couple of 100 years ago, you get kicked out by your tribe. You would be wandering around in the wilderness for a very long time before you found another one that would accept you. But these days, all you got to do is reach out through social media or go online, and you will find people that you can connect with. And if you want to check out some more, that's my other advice to Americans: get out more, go see this beautiful planet, and also realize that if I look around here, there's people who do behave and live as if we aren't living on a planet with scarce resources. And once you go out there and you see we're in trouble on this place, and we do need to make change, and we can't all keeping up the overconsumption that is the predominant culture in the States. Or if we want to keep consuming like that, we have to change what we're consuming and how it's packaged and how it's delivered and all of that. There's change that needs happening. There's more people that we need to join this industry and to keep educating and bringing more people around so that we're no longer on the edge.
#find the others.
Find the others. Find your tribe.
Thanks so much, Tony.
It is my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Greener Grass is a BlueBird Botanicals podcast. Their CBD oil supports a healthy body and a strong endocannabinoid system. They've got friendly customer service who can answer any of your questions, and the number is right there at the top of their webpage. But, per the FDA, they won't be able to make any medical claims for these nutritional supplements. That's also the reason you'll hear little about CBD on this show. There's no need for us to add more evidence about CBD when a simple Google search will give you more than you can read in a month of Sundays. So this show covers the cannabis world and more with editorial freedom from BlueBird Botanicals. Thanks for joining the Greener Grass podcast. As always, our audio alchemist is Matt Payne. The Gypsy Jazz theme music comes from Brett Van Donsel. Our beautiful bird sounds are courtesy of Lang Elliott. And I'm your host, Lex Pelger, wishing you a bright green day.